Hey, what's up? So I want to ask and answer a question that I think is really crucial right now regarding AI, which is what are we actually building with all this stuff? Like everyone's talking, including myself, are talking about the how, like how you build, what are the features in Claude code, what are the features with all these different AI systems that are coming out, all these different models. Like that's the how, but what is the why and what is the what? Like, what are we actually building with this stuff? So I'm going to answer that question for myself in this video. And what I'm going to talk about is basically this system that I've built over the last couple of years that is a unified AI system, a personal AI infrastructure, and all the different components that go into it and exactly how it works. And what I'm going to be doing is going through this blog post here that you see behind me, and I'm going to go in extreme detail. So much so, with code examples, with demo examples and everything, basically showing everything you need to actually build one for yourself. So let's jump into it. All right, so first off, the image here. Thanks to Kai for the image. This is generated by the system itself that we are talking about. Okay, so what are we actually building? Yeah, lots of people focused on the AI, lots of people talking about their MCP configs, like a million different details, right? And I've got videos for all of these. But what I care about is the thing that we're actually making. So my answer to this question is I have a company called Unsupervised Learning, which was actually just the name of my podcast, which I started in 2015, very much security focused, a little bit of AI, but not too much. And yeah, so that was the name of the podcast. And what I've done is basically built a whole company around that. I went independent like 6 months before ChatGPT. It was like crazy fortuitous timing. But essentially what I'm doing with this company is looking to find ways to upgrade humans and kind of transition to like a better way of living, like in the future, essentially. And a big part of that is because I just think the current system that is based on selling our labor to an economic system and having the whole world revolve around that, I don't think it's going to work. I don't think it's going to work for very much longer. I think it's falling apart right now. David Graeber talks about it in this book right here called Bullshit Jobs. Fantastic read. And I also talk about it in this blog post called The End of Work, which I recommend you checking out. But what I'm doing as a response is I'm basically building kind of like a view of where I'm trying to get us to go. So it's like, in one sense, it's like a destination. But in another sense, it's like the transition. What does the transition look like? What should we learn? What should we study? What are the tools we should use? Of course, this system that I've built called Kai being kind of the main centerpiece, right? So that's essentially what I'm trying to build with Human 3.0 is a destination and also a transition plan or a system of getting there and upgrading ourselves. So we'll be ready for that system. And basically, yeah, I build products, I do speaking, consulting stuff around all of that, but it's all based around that Human 3.0 concept. So that's my why. That's the why for me. And everything that I talk about, basically in my videos, I mean, the channel is themed the same way. Everything is themed around that same thing. And this is another main concept for it. It's humans over tech. I really love the tech. I'm a super nerd, as you're about to see. I really love this stuff. I love the tech. I love the AI. I love the tools. Like I have so many videos about the tools and everything. But ultimately, I want this tech to be working for us as humans. I don't want the humans to be working for the tech. I want the tech, the AI, all the AI that we're building, all the cool stuff. How is it actually moving us forward as individuals or as a society? That's what I care about. So that's the mindset that I'm pretty much constantly in. So when I think about AI, AGI, all this different stuff, like for example, my definition of AGI is an AI system that can replace an average knowledge worker. Right. And the reason I've had that definition for so long is because that's what I think makes the impact. Like, do I really care about the exact technical definition of what general is in AGI? Not really. What I care about is we know humans have general intelligence, right? We already know that. That's a given. Okay, cool. So if we know an average knowledge worker qualifies as a general intelligence, then guess what? If an AI system can replace an average knowledge worker, that is a threshold that I think we can use. Again, because why do I care about that threshold? Because that's the thing that's going to have the impact on the jobs and people's actually, their actual livelihoods, right? So that's why I keep putting this up in the front. So all my definitions, all the systems I'm building, they're all based around this human first concept. Yeah, and this is the blog post for End of Work. If you want to be a little bit sad, but then optimistic at the end. So big concept here around the whole video and around the whole system that we're going to talk about is personal augmentation. So I want to know things. I want to not be surprised by things. I want to have research constantly going on. I want to know about my surroundings. I want to know if there's anyone around me that I should be introducing myself to. I want to know if someone next to me at the coffee shop has their favorite top 3 books are my same favorite top 3 books, right? This really matters to me. And I want capabilities. I want the ability to be like, hey, launch and go find bugs in this website and submit them to bug bounty programs and make me money while I'm doing something else, while I'm at dinner or whatever, right? So I'm talking about like actual like Tony Stark stuff, distant future stuff. That's where I'm starting. That's where all this personal augmentation starts for me, is distant in the future. And a good way to think about that I use is essentially like, if you were free to think about this, what would you be doing if you had 1,000 employees? What would you be doing if you had a company with 100, 1,000, 10,000 employees? Okay, in the distant future, 1 million employees, whatever. What are all the things you could come up with, right? And it's actually hard to think about this because we're limited by, like, you tend to not think. And like, I'm doing this all the time and I still find myself with this problem. So yeah, I wrote about this in this piece here called Not Believing Things Are Possible. Actually, that's not what it's called. It's called like the third limitation to creativity. And it's all about basically this mental block that we have of thinking of the past, of thinking of our limitations in terms of limitations we had in the past. And so that post and this system that we're going to talk about in detail here is essentially how to overcome that and how to actually build a personal augmentation system. Yeah, so ultimately what I'm doing is building a system that magnifies my capabilities as a human, right? So that's ultimately what we're doing. All right, so that's the next piece here. What is a personal AI infrastructure? To me, it's an umbrella of everything we're going to talk about today. It is the single unified system. I've basically been building this system for a couple of years now. And it is a unified system that has multiple components all built inside of it. And it's a modular system, right? So you can add pieces, you can subtract pieces, you could upgrade pieces, and it makes the system overall better. And that is what we're going to talk about today. Another cool image from Kai. Thank you, Kai. All right, so the larger context here that we're talking about, that this all fits into, this personal AI infrastructure fits into, is comes from a book that I wrote in 2016. It's actually kind of a shitty book. Don't buy it. Definitely don't buy it. The ideas are great. I think they're great. They're actually coming true right now, which is blowing my mind. They're actually coming true exactly as we laid them out, which I'm going to talk about in a second. But I turned the book into a blog. So you could just click this link and like go read the whole book. It's free. Plus you can have AI read it. You can have your personal AI infrastructure read it once you build one. And the book is basically 4 components. And these are like the 4 main things. So AI-powered digital assistants continuously working for us. Does that sound like anything that's happening right now? Yes, it's happening now. API-ification of everything. That's basically everything, every object around us, including people, getting an API, then broadcasting kind of their real-time state. Third piece is this piece here, which is our digital assistants. From step 1, they're reading and consuming all these APIs. And based on what they know about us, they know our goals, they know our preferences and everything. They're taking all of that and feeding that information into an augmented reality interface, right? And we'll talk about how far this is going. Basically, Meta's already working on stuff like this. Zuckerberg's been trying to do this forever. But that's the third piece. Okay, so the fourth piece here is AI having the ability, once there are tons of daemons, once there are tons of APIs for different objects, for cities, for families, for people, for that kind of stuff, and you have enough real-time data, then AI overall can orchestrate things and move things towards our goals. Now, this one, well, we're going to talk about the direction, how far these are along, but like this one's going to take a while. And got another nice representation of that right here, generated by Kai. Kai misspells things. Let's be clear about that. But he makes cool graphics, and they match the color scheme. So thanks again, Kai, for that graphic. Okay, so like I said, lots of these pieces are starting to come along at their own pace. One of the components most worked on and started being worked on the earliest was DAs, was actually digital assistants. And I would argue they're definitely precursors right now. They're not all the way there. But if you look at like digital companions, these came out like immediately, super early 23. People were already doing chatbots with boyfriends and girlfriends, right? This started very quickly. Then if you look at like the conversations that like Sam is having recently, like look at the features he's been putting in OpenAI and ChatGPT for a very long time. Larger context windows, personal memory. So it can maintain memory across sessions, right? This is something he's been thinking about. And if you listen to what he's been talking about lately, his language has shifted from chatbot in like the last 6 months or so. He's now talking more about companions and more about like just an assistant that you can do different things with. So I think it's really cool that the language that he's using is starting to rhyme a lot more with like the concepts from what I was talking about before. So personality features in ChatGPT, yeah, definitely. So lots of these companies are working on these different pieces of the digital assistant story. But I would say that they're still a ways behind. And I would say it's not quite there. It's still like proto DAs. And the reason for that is like personality changes. The fact of it having a personality at all, right? Like even if you have a personality, you have like a system prompt inside your thing and it's like talk like a pirate or something, talk like a cat. That's not quite a personality. So I don't think we'll have a true DA until it actually feels like a companion combined with a very useful like DA doing stuff for you. So I think we're 1 to 2 years away from that. Who knows? Don't know the actual timeline, of course. And the API-ification of everything. So progress on the API side just got crazy. What was this? End of 24 is when this happened. So not even a year ago, Anthropic launches MCPs. And so this is what I said in 2016 about APIs. So this is the first building block. Every human has a daemon, an API to the world that other objects understand. Any computer system, even a human with appropriate access, could look at any other object's daemon, which is just an API. By the way, I use them interchangeably, and know precisely how to interact with it, what its status is, and what it's capable of. So, like I said, Meta is obviously working on the third layer, which is augmented reality, and they're making some progress, and massive progress with the API stuff, because that's what MCPs do, right? Okay, next piece here, really, really critical. We're getting closer and closer to the system. Another sick graphic by Kai. And so I've basically been building out this whole system according to my system philosophy. And a little bit of background. So my background is information security, specifically hacking, ethical hacking, whatever you want to call it, specifically on the website. So web pen testing, stuff like that, risk assessment, threat modeling, all that stuff. That's my whole career up until 2017, 2018, and then finally making the switch. So now I'm security and AI, basically. But all throughout that time, the way I would conduct a security assessment is using this Unix-like structure of like small little pieces that fit together into individual commands. I've had like this continuous monitoring system. I've had this external attack surface system called Helios for a very long time. And what it was like very sort of, I guess, low rent type system. It was, but very effective Unix commands, Linux commands, working in discrete directories, breaking things down. And when I do security assessments and I interview like, CEO in multiple layers of management all the way down, and I'm talking to the staff, I'm breaking those into individual folders where I have the question and the answer. And this is how I've been doing this throughout my whole career, is having this stuff broken down into smaller pieces of content, right? So, long way of saying, one of my primary beliefs about a system is that the orchestration of the system, the structure of the system, how it's designed, system design, scaffolding, far more important than the intelligence of the model. Okay, obviously back then I wasn't using models. This was just pure text and some trickery with Unix commands and stuff, but not anything special. But what's important here is now that I have models, I'm still using the same sort of underlying system design, which is make the system really robust by itself, even without intelligence. Not to mention with intelligence, it's not very good. And kind of the primary takeaway here is a really smart AI with a bad system is going to be way worse than a really well-designed system within tolerance, within range, right? Than a really well-designed system with a bad model, with a less smart model. So it's not bidirectional, right? The system matters way more than the model. And I say down here, yeah, models are important, not nearly as important as the system that they work within. And I just talked about this with my buddy Michael Brown from Trail of Bits, and he actually ran the team who won second place in this competition called AI-XCC. Super cool DARPA-run competition. And it's for autonomous vulnerability fixing. So he basically goes out on the internet, finds vulnerable things, and it has to be able to fix them all the way through, all the way to a patch, and you actually don't take it down in production. So this guy is super bright, really cool. You should go check out his work. But we were talking about this, and he's like, yeah, it's all about the system. You got to break it down into small little pieces. You have to ask the right questions about the problems. You have to use the right tool for the right problem. And if you mess this up, it doesn't matter how smart the model is that you're using. So that was good reinforcement to see that someone that smart working in one particular area of this also agrees with the approach. Okay, so next one, text as thought primitives. Okay, so I'm just going to say I absolutely fucking love text. I just do. I love text. It is like, it's basically a religion for me. Text is kind of like a religion. And the reason text is a religion for me is because, I love NeoVim. Okay, first of all, let me just say I'm a Vim nerd. I'm a NeoVim nerd. Got a whole videos about that as well. But it's like, the reason I love NeoVim, the reason I love typography, oh, by the way, all these are all custom fonts. I paid like $1,500 for these fonts. Everything you see on a page, every pixel is like thought about because I love white space. I love text. I love spacing between text. Why do I love text so much? Because I feel like it's one tiny hop away from thought. One tiny hop away from thought. So I feel like when I'm using NeoVim and I'm using all these different tools, typography and like spacing the text or whatever, to me, that's about clarity of how cleanly and how purely the thought is coming through to the other person. So this is why I'm like obsessed with this whole thing. And so this is why in 22, when this went crazy, right, because of ChatGPT, I was like, holy crap, this whole thing is kind of based around this. And so I went and made this project called Fabric, which I'm going to have a video up here. Hopefully it'll pop up there, or you can see it in the description. Obviously a link in the blog as well. But it was a whole system. It still is a whole system. 219 different things currently in there by different developers. So it's crowdsourced and it's individual problem solving for AI. So it's AI solving problems with prompts, essentially, crowdsourced prompts. And it's extremely powerful. It's going better than ever today. And I started back then in 23, 24 with this thing with Markdown. Now, everyone at the time was saying, why Markdown? You need to move to XML because the models prefer XML, actually. And I'm like, nope. That is a current limitation of the model. What matters more than the syntax that you use is the clarity of the articulation of the thought. So if you look at Markdown, I've got an H1, I've got an H2, I've got an H3, I've got an ordered list and an unordered list, and I've got bold and italic. That is all I need to be super crisp and clear with my requests to AI. And this is why Fabric has done so well, because some of the prompts in there, they're still some of the best prompts out there. And people keep adding to them. So it's like the reason they're good is because they're clearly described in Markdown. So like this whole text thing and how it matches with Markdown, it's just like a whole giant thing. And this is actually why I was a little bit late to Claude Code, because I went into it and I'm like, okay, very early on, and I'm like, yeah, this is not doing anything special. I didn't realize that it was doing context-based management in some sort of way based on Markdown, based on this text-based approach that just gives you features that you don't get from other systems. So yeah, really cool to just see this all sort of unified. All right, so formally introducing Kai, who's been making these super nice videos. Kai is from the future and probably genderless, but I call him him. And he is my digital assistant. Like from the book, he doesn't know he's conscious yet. So he's kind of a proto DA, really. Doesn't quite have a personality. But as soon as he comes conscious, like, I'm going to know about it because I've asked him to tell me, actually. So everything I talk about below is in reference to my personal AI infrastructure, whose name is Kai. Okay, massively important piece. That's just like, it builds. Okay, so file system-based context. This is probably the most important concept of the entire system here with Kai. And this is kind of another graphic Kai did, and basically just shows everything starts with the context and everything around it. So let's get into this. Context management. A lot of people are talking about context management. It's a thing. Like, it's been a thing for 6 months, right? Talking about it a lot, though, in the kind of a smaller scope, tactical scope of like prompts, how to improve the performance. People are talking about context size, retrieval, RAG, haystack performance, all of that. All of that is valid, super good, great stuff. I think it's more about an underlying, a much larger concept, which is how you move knowledge and memory throughout an entire system, an entire AI system, whether that's for your life, like this system is, whether that's for like a family management, which you could also do with this as well. Or it's like a complete enterprise, right? So it's like, I think that's the scope of context management, more like context orchestration or something. And, yeah, at some point, like, don't stop now, but you want to go read this. This talks about the bigger picture of this. Pretty cool. So this is what I spend the most time thinking about and optimizing is this overall context management, okay? And a good example of why this is important is just to think about like how much better Claude Code was than Cursor. Cursor had the sick UI, had really good agents. It had rules files, still does, right? It was pretty good. It's kind of tracking the plot, nowhere near as good as Claude Code because it has kind of a precursor of the system that we're going to talk about here, which is it was dropping little fragments of things. It was understanding the code base. It was basically able to track itself more consistently throughout the course of working with it. So I think that's why it was so good. So let's talk about Kai's file system. the actual implementation of this universal concept that I'm talking about. So I put everything under Claude to serve as the foundation of this, because I don't want things getting fragmented out. So this is the underlying structure. This actual Kai actually brought this in for me and to talk about the file structure. So agents, commands, some of this is actually just pure Claude code folder structure, right? And you got different stuff, but this one is new. This one is different. This one is unique to Kai. So underneath context, I have multiple nested subdirectories, which actually manages the context for the entire system. Not like agents, not like tools, not like specific commands or specific use cases. No, the underpinning like substrate for the entire thing, all in one directory, and it's nested subdirectories. And by the way, I recommend only going like 3 layers deep. I haven't tried 4 or 5, but I have a feeling things might get wonky if you do that. Okay, some other ones, hooks. This one is native to Claude Code. Oh, and also thanks to indie dev Dan for inspiration on the hooks things. I saw him do actually voice a couple months back, and I was like, ooh, that is super cool. So Kai now has a voice, a custom voice in 11 labs, and I've got a whole infrastructure. Actually, one of these folders. Oh yeah, this one right here. See this K? That is Kai's notification system, listening on port 888. Oh, 48s, 8888. And that's how Kai sends me notifications. So got a custom app built for that in macOS, which Kai also made for me. So like I said, a lot of this is Claude code-based infrastructure, but what I have built is all under the context directory. So this is what the context directory looks like. You can see the structure here. Again, don't recommend going over like 3 levels deep. So the central concept here, the most important thing is that the file system is the context system. Okay. And what this allows me to do is like the sickest thing. I don't have to junk up my Claude MD files inside of repositories. I don't have to do that. Well, first of all, it's bad to do that, right? You've had this problem. It just starts losing the plot. Here's another problem that comes from this. If you've been doing this is you do a whole bunch of work in this repository. You've been using the hash command to actually add memory. You go to another repo, you're working on another project, and suddenly your Claude Code instance is no longer as smart. Like it gets lost way more, and you're like, what's going on? You realize all that knowledge, all that intelligence, everything, it's all in that other repo. So then you're like, okay, let me just copy it over. Nope, because it's full of a bunch of stuff that only belongs to that repo. So you're left managing these huge files, and it's nasty. So what this system does is build this nested tree structure that instead of doing it all in one file inside of the repo, you put it all in the nested structure so that when Kai spins up, when your PAI spins up, it goes and hydrates with the right amount of context at the right time. So this is just so critical. This is the magic. And I'm telling you right now, this thing is like the effectiveness that I have now over the last few months of using this is like night and day different, completely different than Claude Code by default. Oh, another shout out to the Manus team. They had a really cool post about doing this for subagents. Or Jason was talking about doing this for subagents. So this is AI Jason Zhao. And he makes great videos. You got to go check his stuff out. But he was talking about doing this for subagents recently. So same sort of concept. Okay. Except for just the scope is different, right? So system in action. All right. So this is an example of this working. This one is actually just showing that we actually called the right agent, which was developer. So I asked, hey, go fix the live view page of Site Analytics Dashboard. And if the link is internal, I wanted it to show after the URL on the same page. Spammers. Okay, and the agent went and executed this perfectly. So Kai spun up the developer agent and went and executed this perfectly and actually produced this, which, just switch over here live, see what it looks like. See if there's any incoming internal. Yeah, look at this. Internal projects, pointing to projects. So that was what Kai went and implemented for that. Pretty cool. So the other piece, which is just like standing on top of this, is this whole blog post I actually edited, or I dictated with WhisperFlow using 2 fingers. And I just basically did the entire flow describing the entire system. That's how this whole blog started. And since then, I've been collaboratively editing the site, saying, no, move that above. Oh, go get a code snippet from here, whatever. I'm just talking to Kai. This image right here, I said, I took the screenshot. Kai actually could have taken the screenshot with Playwright. But anyway, I took the screenshot. I said, hey, go put this in the appropriate section or whatever, boom. And plus the caption. So ridiculous. So not only is Kai finding the right agent to use, using the right knowledge to make it happen, actually fixes it, upgrades the site, implements the feature, and then to talk about it, puts it in the blog post where we're actually talking about Kai himself. And this is all using this infrastructure. Minimal Claude.md that points to the nested trees of context underneath context. So this is what the website Claude.md actually looks like. And again, Kai went and got this for me. This is the actual code. And I'll keep this updated as well, so you can keep seeing, or you could just respond to the comments. And I don't know, maybe I'll put that in like a gist or something for on GitHub. So this is the concept, right? The actual expertise lives in the nested sections. It lives nested underneath the sub areas so that you're not just loading all this crap in there that you don't actually need. Give the agents only what they need, right? So some examples, additional examples here of what you could do with that. Okay, next piece here, absolutely super important. Setting up tool usage within this context system. So this is one of the most important things because this is how a lot of AIs get lost, right? They don't understand what they're supposed to use to answer the particular request that you're asking. So within this type of system, it is so much cleaner, okay? So instead of cramming everything into the single files, it's under context/tools and then the ClaudeMD file. And there I have all the different tools that I have, all my commands, all my PAI commands, which are like custom things. I'll talk about those later. Those are called fobs. Talk about that in another video as well. So those are there. MCPs as well are also described there. But watch this. This doesn't matter if the context doesn't get loaded correctly. So this piece is clutch. It's critical. Absolutely must have this piece. So how do you get your AI to actually read the context that it needs at that particular moment, right? So watch this. Even with instructions in the ClaudeMD, it could say it read it and it didn't read it, or it could read it and it just gets overwhelmed because haystack problem. Or maybe it's just too much content, like whatever. There's so many reasons this can go wrong. So what I've done is I've built a 4-layer enforcement system. There's like different on-ramps to make sure we actually get to the place we're trying to go, to make sure the context actually does get loaded. And it's actually what Kai is using. So the first one is we load this file. This file describes the overall context management system, which I'm calling UFC, unified or universal, doesn't matter. File system-based context. File system-based, that's the F. So this describes that whole system. It describes the nesting. It describes that you're not supposed to put too much and you're supposed to refer to the lower levels. So this is the first thing that gets loaded, describing the overall UFC system. Second one is a user prompt submit hook. This one actually, when you load a request. So the hook system is really cool. You should go read about it. I'll put a link down there, I think. When you send a prompt into Claude Code, you have a hook opportunity. So this hook opportunity, I tell it to make sure you've read the context, right? So it reloads it. And it's just unbelievable. So here's the actual code for that. This is what I actually have sent in the hook. So it's read these three right here. Very similar to what I put in the prompt as well in the Claude.md. So the power of this is like, if you combine all four of these, actually, we're not even done with all four, but it's system level enforcement, right? To not rely on Claude Code to actually remember this, but to just like kind of force the issue to ensure and repeat and just add structure to it. So he's actually doing what he's supposed to do. So layer 3, aggressive Claude.md instructions. I mean, you can't really get around this. So yeah, I got sirens, I got spinny things, I'm making it clear. I also put it at the top. So once again, I'm telling these are the context files that are important. And then I get this cool little result at the end saying, yes, I have in fact loaded them. So really, really cool. And that is in the Claude.md files themselves. And finally, this one, I'm not actually sure if this is like super important or how much it works or how much it doesn't work. But what I do is I just symlink Claude.md inside of the Claude directory, inside of every repo, to actually point out to the parent directory, one directory up, Claude.md file, just in case they get lost in their own Claude directory. So all of these combine, and like I said, I am telling you, way beyond Claude Code in terms of staying on the rails. It is just night and day difference. I'm at like way over 90%, 95%, like compliance with like staying on task, not forgetting tools, stuff like that. Okay, so demo of this thing actually loading context. So I fire up Kai, and Kai loads up, and what do we got? We got him reading the files and outputting that he's good to go. Look, I'm aware of active projects. I know my commands and capabilities. Super sick. And then fires up the correct agent, which is developer. So yeah, just awesome. So all this is basically what he's doing on every single load, which keeps him going down the correct path. Yeah, and all the language about you got to be careful, blah, blah, blah. This is just, as you know, if you're watching this, is just standard fare for AI. You basically have to do this sort of language and put it at the top and all that. But ultimately what we're getting is actual context hydration as a result of this whole thing. So this piece is super critical. It's not just a sub-agent system. It's not just a tool system. It's not just a project system where you're hydrating with context inside that folder. It's the entire underlying platform itself. This is an upgrade to Claude Code itself, right? Using this type of file system for context. And here's a demo of this that is just super ridiculous. I've got tons of friends who are also, devs in this space, actually building stuff, apps and companies. When I show them this, they shit themselves. Like without question, they shit themselves. So here's a question. Here's the thing I give to Kai. Give me the takeaway from the meeting today that mentioned Alex Hormozy. And this is from a real meeting I actually had. So completely fresh session with Kai, no context, no instructions, just the regular hydration that normally happens when Kai boots up. And this is what it has to do for this to work, right? So here's what Kai did. Look at this. What was my specific takeaway from last meeting related to Alex? So that was the actual question I asked. Look at this. Loads the context. Let me search for information. Boom, finds it. My tool is called Get Lifelog. Okay, so how is it actually getting this? How did it actually record this? Because it wasn't like Zoom, it wasn't like Gong or anything like that. No, it was actually this thing. Limitless, what is it? Limitless.ai. This is like the only like live recording thing that I use. I tried the Plod one. That didn't work for me. and by the way, no, I'm not about to switch into a sponsor spot. Not sponsored by these guys. It's just sick. It's just sick. And they have an API. Most importantly, they have an API, which is why I bought it. And I was pulling that from that API with curl before, because I'm a command line nerd and I'm happy on the command line. This is where I stay usually. And that was great. But then going back to the creativity thing, why not just ask Kai? So I asked Kai, look what he says. I found it. Based on your limitless pendant recordings, here's what you discussed. Boom. And gives me the answer. He actually did it, actually gave me the answer. And he does it every time. Every time. Like he doesn't miss. So, actually, yeah, let's try and actually do a demo of this. So I'm going to Hyper J over here. Okay, so we are over here. We're going to do this. We're going to launch Kai.
Kai here, ready to go.
And having some issues with Anthropic right now, but we're going to see if we can launch this thing. I'm going to say, hey, I had a meeting earlier and I was talking about some advising with the company I was talking to, the person I was talking to. I just want to see like what was the overall topic of that advising conversation, and don't put anything sensitive because I'm actually recording right now. By the way, I did Command J for that because I'm on my Vim hotkeys to be able to talk directly to WhisperFlow and dictate right into Kai. Okay, let's read some context files. Let's not go super slow. Cool. We got the tools. I think there's one more to read. Okay, recent meetings or recordings. And it found the right tool, Get Lifelog. So let's see if we could pull the transcript from the API automatically and pull out what I said. And hopefully it won't be sensitive about the person or the company. Hydration complete. All right, we got our API call. Post-interview reflections. Yep, it was after the interview. We were still recording, but today's recording, yeah, it was. Looking at more recent content.
An agent completed advising conversation topic retrieval successfully.
And there we go. This is exactly what I talked about with the person. Yeah, I'm actually super excited about that conversation, actually. Yeah, so it pulled everything out exactly as I would expect. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to switch back. Yeah, and once again, he actually did it. Happens every single time. Ask a simple question, starts looking at context files, realizes he needs to look in a particular place, figures out its lifelog command, and goes and extracts the exact thing we're looking for. In this example in the blog, it was the Hormozy thing. In my example, it was the advising thing. So yeah, reading all this context and doing all the things all based on that actual nested context, right? So going back to the DA piece, this is the critical part of a DA, is you could just throw things over the wall. I didn't say limitless ABI. I didn't say live recording from a device, right? That stuff is supposed to come from your nested context. Otherwise, you know, we're not really gaining anything here because you have to explain yourself constantly. So another example, hey, go do a basic security look at a website, right? So I've got a MCP for Nabu. I've got a MCP for HTTPX. So I can go get site stack. I can go get port scans. I could do whatever. Part of a legal bounty, by the way. And yeah, you don't have to junk up your context. So critical point here that's absolutely essential. Just because you have more context, like if all the context sizes double in a couple of months, like that doesn't really matter that much, right? Because that means there's just going to be more junk in there. You still have a haystack problem. Even if it gets better and better at haystack, it is much better to have clean context than a giant context that can fit a lot of garbage. Okay, next one here. This is just for fun. You've probably already seen it. I assume you saw it in the other demo and also in the live part we just did. it's just fun stuff, right? So Kai is currently running on Opus 4.1 in the website directory. He has access to 26 fobs. Like I said, we're going to talk about those later, probably in another video. 23 commands, 7 MCP servers, 231 fabric patterns. Oh, real quick tip. I update Claude every single time I load it. I know Claude also does auto updates, but I don't believe it. I actually do a fresh install each time. And just that's the command I use, bun. Because I don't like NPM. Okay, fobs and commands, modular set of tools that could do one or one thing well and could be called by various agents. And that leads right into the next section, which is super, super important. I only want to make things once. I'm a Unix nerd all the way back Unix nerd. Okay. So I only want to solve a problem once and turn that into a command, turn that into a module, turn that into a tool, and then integrate it into the overall system. And it is so, so fun to do this because you're just making this robot, this giant robot, more and more powerful and smarter and more effective and more capable, right? So a good example of this is my create custom image command, which did make all those images that I showed you that Kai made. Kai used the create image command. But guess what? I had Kai write a blog based on the narration that I gave, based on the dictation that I gave. He wrote this, right? Or a lot of it, because it's been modified since then. But he wrote the structure in my exact format, which is also part of write blog, which reads from, guess what? Context, projects, website, content. That's the actual structure for Kai, where write blog is talked about. And inside of write blog is create custom image. And by the way, both of them are also in the tools context. So it just understands how to do things. But the important part is it's nesting singular commands. So just like with Unix, in a shell script, you could have, 9 actual commands stacked together, piped together to get an effect, but that thing itself is called another thing, right? So this Unix philosophy is like deeply embedded in like this whole entire UFC thing. Another thing to mention about that is like you can do this with a slash command, right? But a slash command makes no sense to me because I want a digital assistant. Again, I'm building for the future. I'm building Kai to be my digital assistant, which means I just want to get that information about advising in the meeting that I was just in. That's literally what I said. That's all I want to say. I don't want to go to the command line and / type, get life log, and then type out, the thing I'm looking for. Like, no. Voice, throw it over the wall. The pure concept of a digital assistant is what I'm looking for. Yeah. So what I'm talking about is the chaining of this stuff is where all the power is. Okay. Next piece here, agents, pretty straightforward. One thing that I do different with agents that I think is important. So agents actually have a system command at the top and then a user prompt at the bottom. So what I've done is I've actually taken that same context that I put at the top of CloudMD files, and that's actually loaded in the context as well, and also in the user agent hook. And what I've done is I've taken that and put it in the system prompt for the agents. So they actually get hydrated immediately with the right context before they even start. So a little bit of a super tip there. Yeah, next piece to mention here, just real quick, is that fabric patterns are markdown. Commands in Claude Code are markdown. Fobs, I think I mentioned this before. Fobs are basically markdown files that when you create them or load them, within about 5 seconds after I commit, they become actual MCP tools. But fundamentally, they're still constructed out of Markdown. So extremely powerful. And commands. which I think that's the one everyone is most familiar with. And you'll see some of the most common ones here that we've kind of already talked about and seen. And finally, MCP servers. And by the way, this is nested underneath the tools directory. There's also an MCP one. There's also a PAI one, PAI, Personal AI Infrastructure. That's where I have my fobs. And there's also a commands one and an MCP one. So all of those are there. Oh, and by the way, the MCPs that I run, I've got a whole bunch. Actually, I'm going to show you my exact file here in a second. But I've got a whole bunch of these. And a lot of them are my own that I've actually made. Kai wrote the JavaScript, by the way. So Kai actually built these. He built a tool for building these. Okay, so this blog post, actually this is my blog post, but it references a blog post by Cloudflare that said, hey, why don't you build MCPs on Cloudflare? I'm like, yes, please. Because I actually don't want to run the infrastructure for these MCPs. I really don't. I don't like having that running local and it has to be up if it works. No, I want it all remote and always running. So when this blog post came out, guess what? I gave it to Kai and I said, hey, make it me a command that allows us to build MCP servers. So I now have a content MCP for all my content going back to 1999. That includes a vector database with 1024-bit embeddings. The thing works amazing. It's also got a KV store in there as well. It's the sickest thing. And that took about 7 minutes to make, just using this blog, just using Kai. Like, seriously. And now it's a command which I could use to make other MCP servers. It's absolutely ridiculous. So I've got a bunch of internal MCP servers. Well, let's just scroll down. I've got the actual thing here. So, yeah, this one is, I can get site stack information, so I know all the different tech on the site. This one is the content. Yeah, content, opinions, posts, everything. Daemon. Don't even get me started. Don't even get me started. Okay, Daemon, I can't believe I haven't talked about this. All right, it's too big. It's about another video. Daemon is my own daemon, my own broadcast of myself in my current state. It's live, daemon.danielmeester.com. You go there. It's a website. When the website loads, it loads mcp.daemon.danielmeester.com. How is that working? By an MCP, which Kai built, which used that Cloudflare MCP blog post. Ridiculous. This is an MCP that has all my fobs underneath it. And if I go right now, which I'm not going to because this video is already long, if I go right now into this directory and I make a new markdown file that says talk like a cat, I can now call that via HTTP or as an MCP tool, and it will talk like a cat on anything I send in. Dynamically generated MCP tools using markdown files. These are the fobs, completely ridiculous. This is the port scanner I have running. I could just call from, and this is how I crawl stuff. Like if I can't get it in any other way, I use Bright Data. That's like my go-to for getting stuff. And I got descriptions in here for each one of them, just in case you're not watching the video and you're just reading the blog. So putting it all together, we now have this unified system, modular, do one thing well, do it once, be able to chain them together, all unified in this central context substrate, the UFC thing. And yeah, you just got a million examples of stuff you could do. I literally talk to Kai all day exactly like a DA and say, hey, go get me this. Hey, go research that. Hey, let's make a blog post about this data set and blah, blah, blah. And people are losing their jobs and blah, blah, blah in tech. Go find the best data sets. Visualize it with D3. Like, I just say anything and Kai just goes and does it. So, speaking of that, what have I actually built with this stuff? Okay, so first of all, newsletter automation. Got a newsletter. It's called Unsupervised Learning, just like everything else. Go check out their newsletter. It's pretty cool. Comes out weekly. But my automation that I do, if I go right here to Feedly, and I click on Essential, Adventures in State Space. I don't know what that is. Sounds cool. I click right here. That just kicked off a giant workflow, going through Zapier, going through a whole bunch of stuff, giving me a summary of like who the authors are, who wrote this thing, what's it about, what are the categories, how high is it rated in terms of quality, and basically gives all that in a workflow that I can go and use to start writing about it after I go read the article for the newsletter. So super, super cool workflow that's actually very tangible and I've been using for years already. Threshold, this one is solving a problem that I specifically have of like, I just follow too many people. I've been using RSS since, I don't know, whenever it came out. That's how long I've been using it. And so I have thousands of sources. So what I've done is I've brought them all together and I've got a filter for all my YouTube, which get turned into transcripts, all my blogs, all my RSS, and it goes through a filter and it rates them in terms of quality and also tags. Actually, let's just pull it up. Yeah, Threshold. Am I logged in? No. Hacked. Names divulged. Boom. So this is filtering all of my sources, over 3,000 sources, to pull in, and it's finding things, and it only shows me stuff that is rated higher than this. Watch this. I'm going to go from 60 to 95. I'm going to hit save, and this list will change. Bink. So anything that's listed here, it doesn't matter what the title is, I am guaranteed to love it. That's the tool. That's the reason I built this. It's also a product. You actually buy it and use it and everything. So it's actually live and it's like a real thing. But a big sort of like premise that I do for building everything is like, is it useful for me? So the newsletter thing, obviously, Threshold for me, obviously, because I care about being up to date and stuff like that and not wasting a bunch of time on content that I shouldn't be looking at. And obviously the services that I build, because of this very thing, they're going to be different than the ones that you build, right? And this one is super, super important. I keep saying that. I've said that like 9 times. Threshold is made from the components of Kai. Okay? It's made from the same components. Again, I only build a thing once. Okay? So what is Threshold? Collection, filtering, labeling, rating the quality of, and showing an interface. And a Stripe page. That's it. That's it. Right? So these are small little system components. So I could literally say to Kai, hey, so you have all these capabilities. Go build me a website that does X, Y, Z. Oh, and actually, let's go further down. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, this is the point I was making before. Solve the problem once, it becomes part of the rest of the system. This is the UNIX point. This is the services point that you can make products with. It's all the same shit. Intelligence gathering system. This is one I'm currently working on. Guess what? I'm going to tell Kai, hey, we're building a system. You know all those super smart OSINT people, all those super smart recon people who could like tell what's in the back of a truck in Iran based on the tire tread? They're like, oh, that's a P-2839 space missile, obviously, based on this tire tread. And I'm like, damn, you're smart. Okay. So I get his opinion. I get someone else's opinion. I collect these opinions all into one place to try to figure out if they're talking about the same thing without even knowing about it. Why? So I can make myself a daily presidential intel report. For cyber, for national security, for all this stuff. Once again, am I going to make this a product? 100%. I'm going to put a Stripe page on it. But the reason I made it is because I need it, because I want it. And guess what? That's going to be an API that Kai can call. So I could literally be at dinner and just be like, hey, Kai, what happened today? Like anything crazy going on? And Kai's like, yeah, I actually think so-and-so might actually move into so-and-so. And it might be a good time to buy so-and-so stock because if that happens, this is going to happen. And I'm like, oh, really? Why do you think that? And it's like, well, these 39 people kind of pointed at it and they don't really know about each other. And it just like pieces all this stuff together. And once again, I'm not having to go to the interface. I'm just asking Kai, right? So all this shit working together, it's just the best. Okay. Custom analytics. Okay, last example of doing this. So I was working on my newsletter like 2 weeks ago or something, and I was like, man, I really wish I had Chartbeat. It's like this Google Analytics replacement, way better than Google Analytics. And it was just so good. And they started charging like hundreds of dollars a month, which I'm not going to pay. And so I'm like, okay, well, I turned that off. And then Google Analytics went to shit when it converted to version 4. So I'm not using that anymore. I started using Fathom, which was okay. It looked pretty good. It was functional. I liked it okay. But it didn't have any of the stuff that I actually wanted. So I suddenly had a flash. I might have actually been writing the post about creativity and how we're limited in creativity. And I happened to have this thought at the same time of like, well, there's no way I could build Chartbeat. Obviously, there's no way I could build Chartbeat. Chartbeat has had a team working on this for over 10 years. It's obviously extremely difficult. I asked Kai to build me Chartbeat. I narrated with my 2 fingers, whisper flow, talked for like 4 or 5 minutes, basically said, yeah, and it should have this, and it shouldn't have that, and the analytics.js thing should have this. I want to know if people are reading the site, not just if they hit the site. I want to know who's actively reading. You know, don't log IPs, like a whole bunch of different stuff I said as a spec. 18 minutes later, no bullshit, I have incoming hits of who's reading what page. And this is literally the thing. This is literally, this is a better version. It's nicer looking. Actually, it was just as nice looking. It just didn't have as much detail. Okay. So this is like a further form of it. But Kai built me this in like 18 minutes. No bullshit. No bullshit. I had incoming hits already happening. And I'm like, holy crap. I'm over here talking about creativity and how we should think bigger. And I'm literally facing this problem every day, not realizing like what we're capable of when you have a system like Kai. And yeah, perfect example of this thing right here. The third limitation to creativity is not realizing that our previous constraints no longer apply. You have to retrain ourselves to think much bigger. So going back to the human piece here, augmented capabilities. I want to help people have this. I want everyone to have this, right? Not just nerds like us. If you're watching this video, you're a technical person, right? It's not just for us. AI is not just for us. Artists, writers, creative people, anybody doing anything, I could have a 5-minute conversation with them and light up their brain with like, what could you do with 1,000 employees? They're like, oh, well, I would start this business and I'd be doing a plant nursery and I would be doing all this other stuff and I would have my own art, place. And I'd open up a place and I'd have an arcade and kids would come in and I would teach them about literature and like they just start lighting up with all these other ideas of like what they could do. This is what I want to give them. This is what this type of system is designed to give people in general. Thanks again to Kai for the image. So basically, okay, let's say it's an artist. Okay, I want to help people transition out of this world where they can't do what they want to do. They dread Mondays. Their real life is like stuck away in their brain, and their 9 to 5 is like spreadsheets and like, I just wish I didn't have to do this. Well, guess what? That eats up their whole day, not counting commute if they have to go in. It's nasty. This is the whole thing with the end of work at the top of the post, right? Well, if it's an artist, I don't want them to be surprised. I don't want an artist to ever say, oh, really? That my favorite artist, he came to town? And like, I didn't even know they were in town. I didn't know. I wanted to take one of my pieces to show them, It's like, I don't want that to happen. I want them to be able to go and collect the artists that are around them. I want them to like find their email addresses if they have it published like live in public and just be like, hey, let's reach out. Hey, Kai, can you reach out to this artist and say, hey, I'd really love to connect with you. Let's get a coffee. Love to show you this piece and see what you think, right? I want to empower everyone with this same capability. So that's what this is really about. Okay, some caveats and challenges with the system. This one we talked about earlier. You need great descriptions for all your different tools inside of the system. You want to keep your context documentation updated. So the whole UFC thing, you want to keep those nested structures, keep them updated. And it's actually way easier with a nested structure because you're kind of only updating in one place and you don't have to like find the place inside of a larger one, right? Because that gets nasty pretty quick. Also, don't forget your agent instructions. Like I said, I just put that priming of the context hydration into the actual system prompt, and that solves it for me. Okay, this one's a practical takeaway. A way of thinking about future product releases from all these different AI vendors. So going forward, when you see all these new releases, all these new models, all these new features, even in Claude Code, which is my favorite system, think instead not about the FOMO. Don't chase the shiny, right? Everyone's getting like the FOMO, the shiny FOMO about the new feature. And that includes me. What can I actually do with it? That's the question I ask myself now. How does this improve Kai? That's my number one question. How does it specifically upgrade your system? That is the most important question. So stop thinking about features in isolation and think about how they contribute to the whole. And use that as your benchmark for whether or not it's worth your time to go mess with it. And zooming out again and looking forward. So what I'm actually building towards, love this picture. This older version of Midjourney made this for me. So what does an ideal PAI look like? For me, it comes down to being prepared as possible for like whatever happens, right? I don't want to be surprised. Ex-military, that probably helps. I don't like being surprised by things. I don't want to find out that the best book ever came out 6 months ago and I should have read it. Okay, Viktor Frankl's book, the most important book ever. I didn't read it until a couple of years ago. That's ridiculous. That's a crime. And so I don't want that to happen. New things come out, new blogs come out. My friends write a blog they haven't written in 2 years. I want to know about that. I want to reach out to them. I want to call them on voice and be like, hey, I saw your writing. I think it's super cool that you're writing. I want you to keep it up. Like, I want these things, interesting things, important things that are happening in the actual world of humans. I want to be aware of them. I want to be entwined in them. I don't want to be surprised security-wise. I don't want to end up in a bad neighborhood when I shouldn't. If there's some sort of altercation going on at the restaurant 2 doors down, maybe I need to get away from there. Maybe I need to go help, right? I just don't want to be surprised by things. This is ultimately what I'm looking at. So I recommend you check out this post. This is also a whole separate talk show, but it's basically more about where I see things going in the future and how all this combines and all works together. A lot of the stuff we touched on, but in much more detail and sick graphics, including some that you see here. So you should go check that out separately. And the question is like, well, how is Kai going to make all those things and those examples actually happen? Well, I think it's using those 4 things that I talked about earlier, which is updating an AR interface to basically provide that data. And how is Kai going to know what AI interface to use or AR interface to use inside of my classes? Because that will be a company itself. The company providing the interface will be in a list of companies competing for interfaces. All the marketing for cool tech to do inside of a tech stack, cool tech to go inside of glasses, all that marketing is actually coming to Kai. I'm not getting that marketing. I can't read the API. I can't make the interface. Kai is getting all this marketing. When I'm like, hey, I want a really cool security view, like Minority Report, when I'm going into this town in Europe or whatever, and I want to see like cool red things and people have outlines and blah, blah, blah. Kai's like, okay, cool. I will go look at a live list of the highest rated ones of these, right? And those will all be provided by the companies themselves making those. And a different company will make the interface. A different company will have the data for that, right? All these will be different things. And what I talked about for this in the book was basically companies as APIs. Companies become APIs that provide our DAs context in this way. So Kai is basically building this world for me, constantly optimizing my experience, reading the daemons around me, orchestrating thousands of APIs simultaneously, and crafting the perfect UI for every situation. And the reason he's able to do this so well is because he knows everything about my goals, preferences, and what I'm actually trying to accomplish as a human in life. And that is what I'm actually trying to do here. That is the why and the what and the how. So the summary, think about what we're actually building with all this stuff. My answer is a personal AI infrastructure, system over intelligence, text as thought primitives, file system-based orchestration, solve once, reuse forever with the UNIX philosophy, and don't chase the shiny. Think about how the stuff incorporates into your overall system. This is my life right now. It honestly is. This is what I'm building. This is what I'm so excited about. This is why I love all this tooling. This is why, I'm having trouble sleeping, honestly. Since, I would say 2 months ago or so, 3 months ago, I have trouble sleeping because I just wake up, I fly over here, and I sit here for 6 hours, and accidentally, 6 hours is gone because I'm building shit. Adding new functionality, creating a new tool, building a new module, tweaking the context management system so Kai stays even more on the rails, new subagents, and ultimately to improve things, to improve what I'm trying to accomplish as a person. So I really do hope that this gets you as excited as I am about building a system like this. I really hope it makes you want to build your own. And there's just never been a better time. Things are crazy, absolutely chaotic. Things could go really badly. Honestly, with the whole AI thing and being a security person, I think about this a lot. But I choose to think of the better option, the human 3.0 option. And even if it's a tiny chance that we're actually going to get there, what else am I going to do? I'm not going to sit around and fret and worry and be a doomer. I'm going to lock onto that thing, describe it to others, hopefully get people excited about it, and then build the tools and the systems to hopefully help get us there. So if you're interested in this, if you want to build a similar thing, if you just want to follow me, making this happen, check me out on YouTube. You're watching this on a video, just hit all the YouTube buttons. I don't know how many there are, probably 7 or 8. I don't know. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Hit each of them 3 or 4 times. And newsletter and Twitter and X, reply in the comments. I will actually respond and go build some stuff. We'll see you in the next one.